Thank you for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee in. So let's get started with a look at today's highlights. President Moon Jae-in meets with IMF Chief Christine Lagarde, who's forecasting an improvement in Korea's economy higher than earlier IMF projections from April. Traditional brick-and-mortar banks are trying to step up their game by improving their own financial services in the wake of Kakao Bank's huge success as Korea's second internet-only bank. These stories and more coming right up. The IMF's managing director, Christine Lagarde, says she sees Korea's economy growing at 3% this year and, quote, probably again in 2018. This is a markup from an earlier forecast in the 2% range, putting them closer in line with those of the government's. At a press conference in Seoul, Lagarde described the Korean economy as extremely resilient in the face of adversity. In an earlier meeting with President Moon Jae-in, the pair reaffirmed Moon's plan for a people-centered economy that is in line with the IMF's policy recommendations. Lagarde reiterated the importance of women's participation in the workforce while reducing the country's reliance on large family-run conglomerates to address the country's structural problems. A big gap in business sentiment has opened up between exporters and firms doing business here in Korea. The Bank of Korea says its business sentiment index for companies reliant on overseas demand came to 84 points in August. However, those focused on the domestic market scored 9 points lower at 77, posting the largest gap in 9 years. Korean exporters are largely dominated by the electronics and shipbuilding sectors, while firms doing business locally include the food and beverage industries. The central bank says the surge in global demand for semiconductors and smartphones further widened the gap. BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol added that maintaining a balance between exporters and local firms is critical for long-term growth. Korean exports fell 8.7% on year during the first 10 days of September due to a lower number of working days compared to last year. Total outbound shipments reached $12.3 billion, down from the 13.5 tallied in 2016 over the same 10-day period. Semiconductor exports continue to surge, up 42.9% on year, while petroleum products and passenger vehicles also saw double-digit growth. On the flip side, though, wireless exports suffered an 18.7% drop, while auto parts tumbled 37.6%. Meanwhile, imports fell 3.4% on year to 11.9 billion, with trade surplus being tallied at roughly 400 million. And moving on to our coverage of the financial markets, we have our markets contributor Lee Ji-hye joining us on the line. Hello, Ji-hye.
Hello, June.
All right, so tell us how the local stocks performed on the first trading day of the week.
Sure. Well, stocks across the board today were looking up overall, with IMF Chief Christine Lagarde visiting South Korea, mentioning the local economy's resilience despite geopolitical concerns looming in the region. The benchmark KOSPI gained 0.66% to close at 2,359.08, and the tech-heavy Kosdaq also gained 0.34% to close at 656.53. Market bellwether Samsung Electronics was up 1.47%. SK Hynix was also up 1.65%, and LG Chemicals jumped 5.23%. POSCO was flat, while Hyundai Motors lost 0.37%. KEPCO shed 0.61%, and Naver was also down 0.96%. And by sectors, electronics was up 5.34%, which is a trend picking up from last week, along with airlines and chemicals. Looking grim, on the other hand, were the advertisement industry, construction, as well as real estate.
Now, can you give us a rundown on some of the major market events we can look forward to this week?
Sure. Starting us off today, IMF Chief Christine Lagarde met President Moon Jae-in this morning. They discussed the pivotal role of women in the economy as well as the downside of chaebols having market control over the market. She also mentioned at a presser later today that South Korea has been showing strong developments through diversifying its trading partners and that this would be crucial in pulling through the looming geopolitical concerns regarding North Korea. Moving on to Wednesday, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics will release its producer price index for August. So far, the inflation readings have been very soft, and producer prices among the softest, having fallen 0.1% in the month of July. As for August, analysts expect a 0.3% rebound after Hurricane Harvey. As for trade services, however, it was a clear weakness for the month of July, with less than a 0.2% of a gain. On Thursday, the Bank of England's policymakers will be gathering to decide on the UK key interest rate, in which they're expected to keep the rate steady at a record low of 0.25%. Investors, however, will be eyeing for a potential change in tone, rather to a more hawkish positioning. As for Friday, the New York Fed will release the Empire State Report, and the numbers may be the first factory indication on what is proving to be a weather-stricken month of September. The index is coming off a 3-year record high of 25.2 as of August, and forecasters are calling for moderation to 19.0.
And as for the local front, what is a key market indicator to be released this week?
Well, the Korea Customs Service will be releasing the latest statistics on Korea's exports and imports as of Tuesday. Many are saying that there's a strong expectation of an upward slope in exports, especially after China's producer price index showed a 6.3% jump, as well as an expansion in U.S. government expenditure following Hurricane Harvey and the upcoming Hurricane Irma. As for foreign investors in Korean markets, their total shareholdings have reached an all-time high for the Kospi as of today, reaching 37.1% of its market cap as of earlier today. This is a 22% jump on year, or 10 trillion won, and which is led by electronics products at more than 50% and 44% in communications, as well as 35% in chemicals. The biggest decrease, on the other hand, was the service sector, which fell by more than 21%. This has been Lee Ji-hye for Business Daily.
The Chinese yuan firmed once more against the U.S. dollar on Monday, extending its rally to 11 straight days. The People's Bank of China lowered its official yuan midpoint by 0.05% to 6.4997 yuan per dollar, falling below 6.5 for the first time in 16 months. The yuan has risen 7.5% against the greenback so far this year, recouping the 6.5% fall seen in 2016. Korea's top commercial bank has been ranked 60th among its global peers. Every year, The Banker, a monthly magazine, ranks the world's top 100 banks according to their Tier 1 capital ratio. KB Financial Group edged out Korea Development Bank to become the Korea's #1 this year at the 60th globally. Also included in the list of 100 were Hana Financial and Uri Bank. Meanwhile, China's ICBC defended its top spot for the 5th consecutive year, with China Construction Bank coming in at second. U.S. and Japanese banks rounded out the top 10. Kakao Bank has succeeded in launching 3 million new accounts within a month. This as traditional brick-and-mortar banks wake up to play catch-up with amended financial services of their own. Our Eunice Kim has more.
Millions of Koreans have signed up to be on Kakao Bank's online-only platform, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. According to filings by the company, at its 1-month mark on August 27th, Korea's second web-only bank had opened 3,070,000 new accounts, with some 70% of account holders applied for debit cards, their only access way to cash. Users had deposited an equivalent of $1.7 billion, as the branchless bank issued $1.25 billion in loans. In a move to manage risk, Kakao Bank slowed its pace of lending and also adjusted its loan limit for existing customers. This as shareholders agreed to implement a 500 billion won capital injection last week, thereby more than doubling the paid-in capital of 300 billion won they'd started with in July. These are all figures that exceed those of its only other branchless competitor, K-Bank, which had launched first but whose shareholders have been more reticent about its own refinancing plan. Nevertheless, both are making their mark as industry disruptors. Their brick-and-mortar counterparts, who don't have the advantage of skipping operating costs of bank branches, are pushing out special promotions on interest rates in order to hold on to their customers. In an effort to keep up with Kakao Bank's claimed 90% discount on overseas remittance fees, some commercial banks are lowering their fees or temporarily scrapping them altogether for mobile transactions. Mobile banking has become more streamlined as well, simplifying procedures for online transfers, also adding the ability to open a foreign currency deposit account without visiting a teller. These are the views on a shifting banking industry, scrambling to stay relevant to everyday Koreans making everyday financial transactions. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
China's e-commerce giant Alibaba has launched a new payment system called Smile to Pay that allows customers to make payments just by smiling at a camera. Now, this facial recognition technology made its debut at a fast food franchise, and so far the responses have been positive. Our Arirang has more.
Flash a smile and your payment is made. How does this sound? This is how food is being paid for at a KFC store in China, where Alibaba's financial arm Ant Financial has rolled out the world's first commercial payment system that identifies customers using facial recognition technology. A 3D camera scans their faces to verify their identity, with an extra option for phone authentication as a measure of extra security.
This method saves us a lot of time when ordering. I think it'll certainly increase the efficiency and cut down processing time. That makes it a lot easier when ordering.
Fingerprint recognition may still be safer than facial recognition, but it's quite interesting to pay by your face. I'm a little bit worried about security issues, but it doesn't affect me too much. To young people, this kind of technology is the latest trend.
Yum China, which operates KFC along with other fast food franchises in China, says it has adopted this new technology targeting the younger Chinese generation, who are expected to drive the lion's share of China's economic growth over the next decade.
Though it's only been tested for about 2 months, consumers, especially the young ones, are easily making orders and accepting this new payment method. At this pace, we will soon introduce it at our other stores.
This rollout underscores how China is becoming the latest testing ground for the application of new technologies and services, given its large population and a headlong embrace of mobile internet technology. China has been a front-runner in both the development and application of facial recognition technology for commercial use, a trend that's been untouched by tech firms in the U.S. due to tighter laws governing the collection of biometric data. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
The international community is looking more towards reliable and cost-effective renewable energy sources that can meet the needs of our modern world. Now, bringing together officials and experts from around the world, one of the biggest exhibitions on this emerging field has just wrapped up in Central Asia. Our Kim Hae-sang with this report from Kazakhstan.
A light bulb that doesn't get hot. Using graphene, the world's most conductive material, almost unknown before 2004, the light bulb is at least 10% more energy efficient and 10 times brighter than conventional bulbs. An algae-powered house. Microalgae breeds within the building's shell using photosynthesis and solar energy to produce biomass and electricity.
Algae plants growing in special glass. They need sunlight and water and then produced electricity and heat for 50 apartments in Hamburg.
It's more than just wind turbines and solar panels. Here in Kazakhstan's capital city of Astana, 115 countries are showcasing their latest clean energy technologies under the expo's theme of Future Energy. What makes the Astana Expo even more special is that it's interactive. As children rock up and down the seesaw, water pours back and forth through blades, generating energy to turn on a light. Using smart pads, visitors can learn about the concept and application of different kinds of renewable energy at the Korea Pavilion, which was visited by close to 6,000 people a day. The host country Kazakhstan's exhibit displays every kind of energy from hydropower to the creation of the universe. A fifth of the former Soviet country's economy is based on its oil reserves, which account for 60% of its exports. But with oil prices down by at least half since 2014 and the world turning its focus to sustainable energy, Kazakhstan hopes to lead the way in pushing countries to come up with cleaner energy.
One of the achievements made at this expo is that we signed 46 energy investment-related agreements. As a member of the Paris Accord, our goal is to draw 50% of our energy from renewables by 2050.
The 3-month-long expo has come to a close, but it also marks a beginning as countries, visitors, and investors look toward the future of energy. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily, Astana.
With the issue of climate change becoming ever more urgent, various organizations across the world are searching for a way to reverse the tide. Now, France is one country that's taking an aggressive approach to tackle this problem, aiming to completely end oil and gas production in the coming years. Our Elliot Kim has the story.
Later this year, France is planning to approve a new legislation that will help the country towards its goal of ending oil and gas production by 2040, according to a draft bill presented at a cabinet meeting on September 6th. The bill would allow France to stop granting exploration permits.
When it's passed, the bill will enable us to immediately stop any new hydrocarbon exploitation permits, any sort of hydrocarbon, conventional or non-conventional. It will also allow us to ban the renewal of existing concessions beyond 2040.
Not only would there be no new permits, but it would also allow the government to turn down the more than 40 already existing exploration requests. President Emmanuel Macron wants to make France carbon neutral by 2050 and plans to get there by leaving one of the largest producers of greenhouse gases, fossil fuels, in the ground.
I think it's just a strong gesture and more than just a symbolic one. And obviously in our minds is the fact that once we've done it unilaterally, we're the first big country to do it in times to come. And I'm thinking particularly of December 12th, which will be a special moment. France can legitimately try to convince our partners to do the same thing.
With the country set to continue importing and refining oil, it's hard to put stock into Hulot's claim, especially when the annual production of hydrocarbons sits at only 1% of France's total consumption, while the rest is imported. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
With less than 2 days to go until Apple unveils its new iPhone, an online leak has given a glimpse on what consumers can expect, including its name. An Apple News website suggests its latest device will be called the iPhone X. The site also reports that an iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are also in the pipeline, which will be modest upgrades to the 7 and 7 Plus. The leaks also show codes to a new iOS operating system, as well as new technology, including a facial recognition system that turns facial expressions into emojis. The new iPhone will make its debut on Tuesday, local time. According to a recent study, Korean consumers place the highest importance on health benefits and ease of handling when it comes to choosing their vegetables and fruits. Retailers have come up with new packaging methods to fulfill the evolving needs of consumers. Our Cho Sang-min has this report.
Ever since the idea of well-being was first introduced in Korea around a decade ago, the demand for organic vegetables and fruits have shown no signs of regression. As a result, preferences shown by Korean consumers in selecting their vegetables and fruits have changed as well. According to the Rural Development Administration's 6-year study on 1,500 urban households, consumers are now placing a higher priority on nutritional content over price and appearance when it comes to fresh produce.
I try to buy healthy ingredients since they are going on my family dinner table. A minor scratch or two on the vegetables wouldn't be a problem for me as long as they contain more nutrients.
Changing preferences have prompted supermarkets to come up with new ways of packaging their healthy merchandise so that they're easier to consume. Vegetables like garlic and scallions are pre-peeled and chopped, ready for use, fresh out of the bag, while fruits are packaged in single portion servings, free of the hassle in dealing with the mess of peels and seeds. They are often the first items being picked up from the store shelves these days.
I prefer to get bundles of mini-sized vegetables. They're easy to handle and cook as they're pre-peeled and chopped into ready-made sizes.
Industry experts say the growth of single-person households has led to the rising popularity of healthy foods that are conveniently packaged. This explains the fall in the sales of bagged rice in favor of microwavable brown rice packs. Also, net sales of other healthy grains, including oats and sorghum, have grown more than 30-fold over the last 3 years. Health-conscious food choices are likely to prevail among Korean consumers in the wake of recent food scares over eggs tainted with pesticide and pork products from Europe linked to hepatitis E. Jo Sung-min, Business Daily.
The ozone layer is a natural barrier that filters out deadly radiation from the sun, but ozone gases can cause a wide range of health problems if it's down here on the ground level. And our Yoon Shin tells us more about this growing yet often overlooked air pollution issue and the nasty side effects it can cause.
With scorching hot days and sticky tropical nights behind us, summer is coming to a close. But the season's warmth will stay around just a bit longer, as Korea is expected to have a monthly average temperature of some 20 degrees Celsius or higher throughout September. And with that, also lingering from summer is one of its seasonal threats.
Ozone gas is formed when sunlight causes nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds known as VOCs to react in the air. These chemicals come from many sources, like cars, factories, and consumer products. More than 90% of the Earth's ozone stays in the stratosphere, protecting us from harmful UV radiation. Nearer the ground, however, the chemical compound is not welcome.
When the ozone concentration reaches what's considered a harmful level, we send out alerts. Because it's a gas, masks don't help. When the alerts are sent, usually between late spring and early fall, around 2 to 6 p.m., it's important to try and stay indoors.
The nation's Environmental Research Institute keeps an eye on the ever-changing pollution levels. When the 8-hour mean exceeds 90 parts per billion, an ozone advisory is displayed on digital boards across some 20 cities and provinces. But the symptoms of ozone sickness are often overlooked.
I work mostly outdoors, but I've never cared about the ozone level.
I see the alerts, but I don't know how to protect myself.
I know that high levels of ozone are bad, but I don't know what specific damage it causes.
Doctors are warning against the effects of the invisible threat. Extended exposure to ozone can cause eye inflammation, and inhaling excessive amounts can lead to nausea, chest pain, and even respiratory damage.
Generally, those with allergies, conjunctivitis, or asthma are considered particularly vulnerable to exposure to ozone, along with infants, toddlers, and pregnant women.
Korea saw the harmful gas steadily increase over the past 2 decades. Less than 100 ozone advisories were issued before 2012, but now the number has surpassed 240.
Ground-level ozone is forecast to increase. To counter this, we need to track down which chemical substances among nitrogen oxides and VOCs are the main cause, and reduce the amounts of those chemicals, along with countermeasures to deal with a prolonged warm climate.
Even now, the system isn't considered ideal. Korea's ceiling for the normal ozone range, 90 parts per billion, exceeds the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's standard of 70 parts per billion and WHO's guideline of 50.
These standards were built to safeguard the particularly vulnerable, such as patients with chronic respiratory or pulmonary conditions. Korea could also use a renewed policy direction for the pollution matter, aimed to cater for those people.
Unlike particulate matter known to cause long-term damage and even cancer, ozone does not accumulate in one's body, so is considered less deadly. Still, in-depth studies across the globe into other health risks of the highly irritating gas are ongoing, alongside the traveling pollution's geopolitical impact. So as researchers suggest, why risk further problems later on when safety nets can be made beforehand? Yin Shin, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.